Twitter, and Facebook are all correlating to create one website. Its name? UTwitFace. Now, I'm totally kidding. But seriously, think about that. If the three major social networking sites were able to correlate into one website, they'd call us all out on our actions. UTwitFace. Over the years, social media has exponentially grown. For the radio to reach 50 million users, it took 38 years. For the television, it took 13 years. For the internet, 4. iPod took 3. Facebook hadn't hit 100 million users in less than 9 months. And as for iPhone applications, it took 1 billion in 9 months. It's crazy because many of us actually have our own cell phones with us right now, and we're actually using them to use things such as video recording and such like that. But in actuality, things like this is actually hurting that of our social skills. In the OCOlympian.com, last updated on August 30th, 2009, it explains that despite the fact that we have the effects of being able to have the technology to relate to one another and be able to connect it, a well-connected society is actually more so an illusion. Today I'll be exploring and talking to you all about the negative effects of technology, how it's a problem in causing problems in our lack of social skills as a society, and the ways in which the cause is due to our technology, and the solutions in which allow us to become more technology friendly, but not necessarily enveloped in all of it at once. Now, the technology within us is actually a very good thing. The advances that allows us to become in science and medical fields, in certain things like that, is great. However, our social skills are lacking in many different criteria. Many of us also see that as the hours per day of the face of social interaction is decreasing as the increase of the electronic media is using. So in doing that, we also see that all the time when many of us are going out with our friends or our family, we're in groups of people, but we're all on our cell phones. It's hilarious to see a bunch of people. We see that outside of the quad all the time. There's groups of people supposedly interacting with one another, but they're actually in their own different world. They're playing things like Angry Birds, or they're on Facebook updating their status, checking their messages, or searching things on YouTube. It's in these times where we're actually taking away from the time of actually having our face-to-face interaction. In the ability to be able to interact with one another, we have to have that connection with one another. It's something that has something to do with eye contact, with gestures, with tones, and being able to express to one another certain aspects that can't be expressed through that of words. Now, the interactions that are happening within our children, like teens during these days, are seriously declining. The number of the calls sent and received are flatlining since 2007 to about 2009. The number of billed SMS text messaging received and sent are exponentially increasing. Now, this is really sad to think because our cell phones are originally supposed to use something to call someone, to hear someone's voice. But in actuality, we're using it simply just to type a few words and using emoticons, which are not an equivalent as to how we're feeling. In the 2009 article, Kids Really Are Different These Days, published by Phi Delta Kappan, explained that cultural, personal experiences and relationships are actually really important in that of our cultural development. And we need peers in order to develop these certain sources about ourselves. Adults are also used in order to be able to figure out certain things about ourselves and how social interactions are actually supposed to happen and occur. But with the effects of using technology all the time, it leads to other things. Without having the time to spend with our peers, it leads to other things like kids not being able to understand how to act with one another, which leads to something called bullying. Now, bullying has always been around, but with the introduction of the internet, cyberbullying has really brought bullying to a whole new level. In 2009, BullyingStatistics.org stated that 25% of teens and adolescents have been bullied via the internet and that of their cell phones. Now, that is really quite the increase because the daily interactions between one another are seriously changing dramatically for the worst. In the 2009 article, again, the kids are really different these days, indicates that 82% of children are online by the 7th grade, and they have 6.5 hours of media exposure every single solitary day. Now this cuts into time with family activities and peer activities. And things such as emails and text messaging in the household, especially when people are too lazy to go downstairs and tell their kids to come up for dinner or anything like that, is quite sad, I would think. And doing this enables the communication between the parents and the kids to decline rapidly. Now, miscommunication can happen a lot during text messaging and emails and such like that, because it's actually, communication is 7% words and 93% actual gestures. It has to do with your eye contact, your tone, your pitch, and everything that's actually happening to you right now. The newsrecord.org of October 6, 2008 explained that the first-year college students no longer have that ability to really relate to their peers as quick as they did once before. They put them into like a certain room where they were able to interact with one another, and most of them were simply on their cell phones talking to other people rather than mingling with other college students. In the universitychronicle.net, February 13, 2011, it explained that cell phones, text messaging, Skype, and blogs are all great types of sorts of communication portals. But with using a lot more communication portals, we're actually decreasing our effectiveness as we communicate. Now, most of you are probably looking at me like, Mary, this is not my problem. Like, I have social skills, we're in a speech class, we're talking to one another, like, we have good camaraderie. But how would you feel if I gave this speech all through text messages? It wouldn't be as captivating, and it wouldn't have been as, connecting to one another. In January 23rd, 2008, John O'Neill, the director of addictions at the Menninger Clinic in Houston, Texas, explained that technology nowadays is kind of like alcohol and drugs. It's very addicting. It actually can wreak havoc on that of personal and work relationships. And the Media Literacy Clearinghouse reported in 2011 that in a Raycon study, 72% of the U.S. middle school students are using the internet like 3 hours a day, other than using it for actual schoolwork. They're not playing like things like before. They're not able to succumb to certain ideas and concepts because of the fact that they're using so many other types of outlets to be entertained. Now, many of us are looking at things like WALL-E and Terminator and like, oh, it's cool, it's entertaining. But isn't it kind of scary to think that one day, our technology will one day take over our world and bring us out into outer space, and then we'll live on like little tractor things, and we won't be able to interact with people. But it's okay. Being able to hang out with everyone else seems a lot more old-fashioned. People are all about going to the movies, hanging out on their cell phones, texting people one another, more so than writing letters or going out and hanging out in the actual terms of settings of like the outside, the outdoors. But it's actually quite simple to really think about the solutions of what we can do in order to better our social skills. There's 3 simple things that we can do in order to combat the cause of technology that's causing our social skills to lack. And that is simply by putting your phone away. When you go outside to a lunch or whatever, or say you go into the classroom, put it into your purse, into your pocket, anywhere where it's concealed, but it can still be on vibrate in case there's an emergency. But don't allow it to sit on top of the desk where you're waiting for it to light up and signal like, ooh, I have a new text message, I have a new update, I have a new notification. It's not that important, to be honest. It's something that is simply there for luxury and pleasure. It's not your entire life. Another thing is for Facebook. Many of us have it. We go on it for hours of the day, and it takes away from our study time all the time. It does, right?
Oh, yeah.
Being able to, there's actually a way you can actually deactivate it temporarily. But simply by logging onto your Facebook, there's an account settings box right on the right-hand top side corner. Hitting that, you will go into a drop-down menu. By hitting account settings and going to the left-hand side, the word general will be highlighted. Instead, click security. You will be led to a security settings where on the bottom left-hand corner written in blue and underlined is deactivate your account. Simply by clicking on this link, you'll be led to a page that simply goes through a few questions, and once you get to the line that says reason for leaving, simply click the bubble, I will be leaving temporarily, I'll be back. And by doing this, you'll be able to sign onto your Facebook whenever you want eventually, when your school studies are done, in order to reactivate your account, simply by going onto your Facebook and logging onto your email and just confirming that. And lastly, the last thing is to go outside. Many of us simply go inside, go on a player Halo or Call of Duty or do other certain things via the internet or our cell phones, and it's not as captivating as it once was to go outside. I'm challenging all of you to simply go out to a park, bring a book. Yes, they still exist other than on the internet or on the interweb. Simple paperback books are really cheap, or go to the library and simply rent out a book and read for a couple hours every day. Be able to be enveloped in things that are other than cyberspace, because there's so much more to life than just technology. And being able to understand that technology is not just, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's all good things are done when we're able to take them in small intakes. Today you got to learn the negative effects of technology, the problems it comes with to our social skills, how our tech-savvy generation is to blame, and you learned a few quick tricks in order to save maybe not our social network, but our social lives. I'm asking all of you to really just take into consideration to use technology sparingly, because we would hate for one day for technology to take over us all, really. We don't have any cyber chips in us yet. I'm scared for that one day, but it just might eventually happen. Like all good things, they come in good moderation. Please do not allow a society that has been unable to realize what's going on with their lives. They are unable to understand the difficulties of being able to just head out and go out into the world, into nature, and experience life the way it was originally supposed to be. So please do not be a twit face and use other forms of technology in order to simply do daily interactions.